Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Politically Incorrect Knitters. I'm Deplorable Knitter, and this week I am actually not joined by Pinkava, but I did my best to get her doppelganger. So please help me welcome Neil James of Blacked Magazine.
As you can see, as you can see, Anne has let herself go slightly since you last saw her.
Yeah, Anne just arrived in Romania not terribly long ago, so she's getting settled in, and Neil was kind enough to be a fill-in for us, and so that's awesome. But before we get chatting, I want to tell you that last week's giveaway, the Patriot Collection, the Odyssey Tale book, the winner of that was actually a Rumble winner this time, and it's Goose Mom 3. So please make sure you email. And I'm not great at checking the Politically Incorrect Knitters emails. So if you email deplorableknitter@yahoo.com, I will more likely see your thing, and I'll make sure that that gets mailed to you. I'll let Anne's mom know, or Anne will probably. But so Goose Mom 3, make sure you contact us. And then our anniversary is over, unfortunately. So we're going back to once monthly giveaways. So you'll have longer to get your comments in for this one, but this month, we're giving away a copy of Odyssey Tale by Cody Schlegel, an awesome unwoke book. Have you read it yet, Neil?
I've not. Well, I might enter the thing to see if I can win it.
Absolutely. But are you a reader or not so much?
Yes and no. I'm one of them people, I binge read. So I'll read a load of books in one go, and then I won't read for a year or 2 years. So at the moment, I'm in a no reading mood, but I am listening to podcasts, so and audiobooks, I should say. So I'm trying to do that instead. But when I read, non-stop. Yeah.
I am. That's actually how I am too, which is why I have gotten so into audiobooks, because I'm the person that won't do life. I'll be like, my kids will be like, "Hey, Mom, I'm hungry," and I'll be like, "That's fine." And
yeah, wait a minute, wait till the next chapter.
Yeah, no, just wait until this book is done. It's only going to be 3 or 4 more hours. You'll be fine. But because of that, I don't read physical books because I just don't have the time for it. And I have to do life, unfortunately. Not unfortunately, but there are people that would count on me. So I gotta, and we have given away Audible copies in the past. So maybe when you enter, you should enter for an Audible copy so that you can listen to it.
Yeah, I'll do that. Because is it sci-fi? Is it a sci-fi book?
No, it's based on like mythology. It's loosely based on like Odyssey. There's a lot of the same characters and things. So
I'll enjoy that then, because I love mythology.
Yeah. So it's fun. It's different. And I don't know much about it, and I really enjoyed it. So you don't have to be into that to enjoy it. But so this month's giveaway, copy of Odyssey Tale, and then here is a one-of-a-kind skein of Chicken Lady Fiber Arts yarn, and I picked this up in one of her sales, and it's just so pretty. It's on sock yarn. It's actually sock yarn, so for all my fingering weight knitters, here you go. But so
her yarns are always good, aren't they?
They're always so pretty.
I don't think I've seen any that I haven't liked.
Yeah, there's a few colors that just aren't in my wheelhouse. Like she had one that was like a 70s couch, which was like yellows and oranges and browns. Those aren't my colors, but I mean, there's something for everybody, and her colors are always awesome.
On a podcast recently, I was talking about your colorway, the politically incorrect colorway, and I was saying, I love it, but it's not my colors. And then afterwards, after the podcast, I was sat in my living room and I was just thinking, my blinds are the same color as that, and my cushions are the same color as that. So everything in my living room is either burgundy or kind of mustardy, ochre yellow, which is exactly what that colorway is. So I might have to order it and maybe make a cushion or a cover
something for your living room.
Yeah.
But okay, so enter to win by commenting on this episode, which is going to be 108, I believe. So you can enter to win this. And if you cannot wait, you can always pick up Cody's book on Amazon. The link is in our profile, and you can always get your own Chicken Lady yarns in case you can't wait and you want to get something. And this month you can use the code July 20 to get 20% off your purchase. So there you go. So there's that. And then before I pass on to Neil, I'm just going to show you guys this quick. It's going to be coming out this weekend. It's not quite done yet. I've got somebody working on test knitting, but here is my latest pattern. It says Life Wins. And then on this side, there's a little baby feet and a little heartbeat. It's going to be a one size hat. I'm going to include some instructions for if you need to make it bigger or smaller, what to do. But this is going to be coming out. And thank you so much. And if you're on my newsletter, if you're signed up, you'll get a code for a percentage off. I haven't decided how much, but if you're on the newsletter, you'll get the code. So there's that. And then that's all I have. So Neil, what's going on with you?
With my knitting? Okay, well, I've already showed this shawl on another podcast, but I'll show it again. Why not? So this is a pattern that I've designed. Well, I designed it a couple of years ago, and it's just, you know, when something just stays in a drawer. So this is, I'll make sure I've got it the right way around. Can't really see, can you? If I go backwards, can you?
Yeah, it's pretty.
So it's knitted just with short rows, and it's like a semicircle. It's all just done with colour changes, so there's nothing fancy about it. And it's in opal yarns, which I used opal minis. So that will hopefully be in the next issue. Well, not the next issue, the next pattern issue of Blocked. I'm still writing the pattern and I want to get it test knitted. And then the only other thing that I've got going on with knitting is sorry, they're not going to look very exciting because it's just plain colours. But I've got 2 sleeves on the go. And as you can see, one thing I have to do with socks and sleeves is I have to knit them at exactly the same time. So if I do one, I won't do the other one. You know what I mean? So I do an inch of each, and always they're at the same point. So don't look at my I don't know what went wrong here, but my ribbing isn't particularly good. I think it's because I've been knitting in the when I've been doing stockinette, I've been knitting in the round for so long that when I went back to knit a row, purl a row, it just didn't. I don't know, but it's probably not. It'll probably block out, but
that's what I was thinking. You know, those weird things usually block out pretty well. So
and this is going to be if anyone read issue, well, I know some people did read issue 1. I said if anybody read it. If you read issue 1 of Blocked, it's the sweater that is a vintage pattern that I'm rewriting, and I've changed quite a lot of it. So what? Sorry, I just put this back in the box. I have to put it in a box so the cats don't destroy it. Yeah, so I've found a vintage pattern from 1967, and I've completely rewritten it in sort of more modern terminology. But one thing I did is I changed it as well enough so that it isn't the original pattern, if that makes sense. So I've kind of used a skeleton of the original pattern. A bit like when somebody knits socks. Yeah, well, I'd say more than just inspired. So, and I am going to credit the original source of the original pattern, but when you see the two together, you would understand why I could get away with saying it's entirely my own, but it's not. So I'm erring on the side of caution there. So in terms of knitting, that's all I've got on at the moment, which is enough, I think.
Yeah, I just have not been knitting. I was telling Neil before we started that I, you know, it's the holiday weekend, and what I do for work besides this is that I clean houses, and I clean rentals specifically. So it's a really, really busy weekend for me because it's the 4th of July and rentals are just booming. And so I have just, I'm not going to have any rest this weekend, but that's okay because this is not the usual. So
I was just going to say, forgive me, Americans, forgive me. It's so obvious, but I was just going to say, what's the holiday?
yeah, no.
It's your freedom from us, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry, Neil.
Yeah, what is it we say? We say, have a happy insurrectionist day, I think we say.
Oh, geez. Now, I think that actually qualifies as an insurrection, doesn't it? This as opposed to what they're calling January 6th, right?
Yeah. Well, speaking of January 6th, I don't know the lady's name. You'll probably know her, but did you see the congressional hearing where that woman told this bizarre story about Donald Trump being in the car? And I was watching it thinking, I thought she was lying, allegedly, just in case she sues me. But it just didn't seem real. And this sort of, do you know what her name was? Do you know who she was?
I don't know who she was, but I also have seen that like, and what I've seen mostly is like on Instagram, people like mocking it and being like, oh yeah, he punched out 6 Secret Service agents and stole the wheel and did, like, it was just these crazy accusations.
But it was the way she was saying it as well, you know, very Amber Heard, you know, very.
Oh, geez. You know. Amber Heard. I saw some of that trial too, man. That stuff was nuts. Amber Heard was Johnny Depp's ex-wife, who the whole defamation trial was crazy. Yeah. But anyway, that's a different story.
Yeah, we really got off a tangent there, haven't we?
But I know that we've had Neil on a couple of times. He's done a few lives with myself and Anne. But why don't you just tell our friends who you are in case they missed our lives and they haven't come across you yet? I don't know how that could be, but in case.
Okay. Well, I'm described by some as the stupidest man in all existence. I'm also probably the evilest man in all existence to some. But it was you and Anne that got me into prominence, really, wasn't it? Because what had happened was Christy Glass had been cancelled and there was a lot of stuff going on. And one particular weekend, I just decided to air my thoughts and ended up having lots and lots of rows with lots and lots of people, which got me noticed. And then you guys interviewed me. And in the process of being interviewed, I said a silly thing, which was, I'm going to create a magazine. And then after saying it, I had to do it, which actually, I'm joking. I did want to create a magazine, and you guys gave me the.
Once you put those things out on the internet, it's a lot harder to take them back because now there's a record, and so you sealed your fate.
It's there for real forever, isn't it? Yeah. So I created an online free magazine for knitters and crocheters, although there hasn't been much crochet in there, to be fair, at the moment. There will be soon in the next issue, I hope. And that's sort of me, really. And now recently I just finally got my act together and started a YouTube channel. And I've interviewed 4 people so far, and there's going to be a little bit of a hiatus on that for the next couple of weeks because I'm working on the next issue of the magazine. So the YouTube channel, you won't see any activity on there probably until the end of July, so about a month. And that's about it, I think.
Cool. Yeah, and if you guys want to check out Neil's channel, I'll make sure that the link is in the description so that you guys can find it, or you can search Block Magazine. He comes up.
Yeah. And at some point, I don't know whether I want to interview you and Anne together or whether I want to interview you separately. So it's going to happen, I hope, if you agree to it. So, but I don't know when because I haven't quite.
Of course we will. I just
speak for Anne.
No, Anne will do it too. We've already talked about it, so it's all good. and now it's on the internet, so she's got to do it whether or not she really wants to.
Yeah. Poor Anne.
No, she's good. She's happy to go along with most of the things I say, so it's fine. So there wasn't much knitting today, but there's a lot to talk about. Neil and I actually meant to do a live over the weekend, but like I said, my life has just
life was just happening, wasn't it?
It's just been off the rails, and I've just been too busy. So this is our live. This is our live for the abortion topic because
well, it's not going away, is it? The topic is still there, so it doesn't matter when we do it. We'll always be relevant, won't we?
But it's just so we all knew it was going to happen with the leaked decision that had come out at the beginning of May, but man, the crazy that came out this weekend just was out of control, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, and the madness isn't just in your country. You know, it's about your country, but we've had women, well, not just women, I'm saying women, we've had women and men all marching and, you know, going crazy in this country. Like, it's got nothing to do with us, you know, which is why I feel justified in giving my opinion on your country's laws, because if they can do it, so can I.
Well, it's really funny because when we were talking about doing a live, I sent Neil a voice message and I'm like, hey, what's better to talk about some abortion than a Christian and an old white dude? So let's get on this, right? Like,
yeah, because you know it's going to annoy them so much.
we're not supposed to have opinions on this, so there you go. But the one thing I have noticed, far-reaching, overwhelmingly, everybody knows what a woman is now.
Yes, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah,
And
nobody's challenging anybody anymore. Yeah,
it's amazing.
Well, unless suddenly there was a course everybody took between then and now, and they all passed.
perhaps, but
yeah. Well, I've still seen a few uterus owners. I've still seen that a couple of times.
Yeah,
generally, yeah.
And I've seen the things where like they're saying folks, FOLX. Let's not forget that people who don't identify as a woman still have a uterus and they need to be included. And
yeah, I've had a few comments about being a man. How dare I have a? It's like, am I? I identify as a black woman at the moment, so I'm allowed to comment on anything, I think. That's how easy it is, isn't it? That's how easy it is to change your gender.
But yeah, people don't like it that we have opinions on it. But so I was posting things on Instagram and nothing. Okay, so some of it was kind of controversial. I won't lie. Like I posted a picture of a guy washing aborted babies and getting them ready for burial, and people really were upset by that. And a lot of them were like, "Oh, that's Photoshop. That's fake. That's this. That's that." And it's
not. I've seen that image before. It is a real image. I'm not sure what the context of the image was, though. Was it aborted fetuses or was it? Yeah, it was aborted. Yeah. And
I don't believe it was from America. I believe it was from a different country. And so the story with it is that he found them in the dumpster and then he took them and prepared them for burial. And I would put it on here, but it's pretty sensitive. And if you watch with your kids or something, I don't want to have it on, but it's what you would imagine.
You can find it if you want to see it. Yeah. So
you can check out my Instagram.
Yeah. So nobody's taken it down yet. I'm surprised it wasn't flagged and taken off.
No. It's funny what Instagram allows and doesn't allow. So I reported somebody. I never report people because I get a lot of hate, right? And I'm sure you understand that too. People come after us and I generally don't report them, but somebody told one of my followers that they should have been aborted and used as bird feed. And I just thought that was super over the top. And Instagram says, no, it doesn't go against community guidelines. And I'm like, but if I misgendered that person, I bet you it will go against community guidelines. Like, it's just weird what is okay and what's not okay. And I have no idea, man.
Well, basically, the rule is if you're a lefty, it's always okay. If you're not a lefty, it's never okay. That's how it seems to work, isn't it? Did you see the talking about people getting things taken down? Sorry, I'm going off topic, but did you see the post by Lawrence Fox? The LGBT plus whatever, all the weird flags. There's a new one now, isn't there, with like a triangle and a circle. And what he did, I don't know how he did it. I didn't actually see it, but I can imagine it. He put 4 of them together and he created a swastika and he posted it and he got that taken down. And I think he's been banned from Twitter because of it. I think. I might be wrong.
I'll have to check, but did you see he just put out a new documentary? It was 20 minutes long. I watched it yesterday. It was great.
Yeah, it was good. Very good.
And this is not about abortion, but it's about what they're doing to kids in schools. And it's specifically in the UK, but I'm sure that it's similar to what is going on here in America. And it is just crazy.
It's the secrecy that bothers me the most. If you're a parent, you should be able to know exactly what is being taught to your children in a classroom on any particular day. Now, I would think that would be come under the Freedom of Information Act, which I don't know what it's called in America, but we have the same thing as you guys do. I know because we copied it off you. So if you write into any organization, you should be able to get that information because it's publicly, it's a public information thing. But they won't tell you what they're teaching them, which makes you think immediately, well, there's a reason they don't want parents to know.
For sure. I mean, I think a lot of the school stuff came into focus during COVID because there were teachers that were saying that parents couldn't be in the room while their kids were having classes. And so of course every parent's spidey sense was tingling and was like, why can't I hear? What are you telling my kids that I cannot hear? And I think that that's actually part of what made it such a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I've said, I mean, I'm a teacher. I don't teach that age group. I teach teenagers and above. So I teach from the age of 16 through to adults. But I would never have had a problem with them having a camera and audio in my classroom, because in fact I would encourage it for different reasons, because with that age group the teacher is often the one at risk, because I've been physically attacked by teenagers and so on, and you need that evidence that isn't there because we don't have it. They've never made it a thing that we can have cameras in the classroom. But also I think that if you are a parent of that age group, especially the younger age group, I think it should be like you can do it with and again, I'm not comparing children to dogs. I've said this in a few podcasts recently. But I've got a friend and she puts her dog into a doggy daycare thing, and she can log into a camera that shows her all of the dogs playing in this room. Now, as a parent, you should have a password and be able to look and listen to what is going on in your child's classroom. And I think that's just the right of every parent. But obviously, I don't know whether you have it there, but we certainly don't have it here.
No, we don't have it here either. I think some daycares might have it.
Right.
Maybe you can't hear, but you can see your kid during the day.
See. Yeah.
I know it's very common in like animal daycares, and it's strange to me that people are more worried about what's going on with their dog than what's going on with their kid. Like it's a very strange thing.
Well, there's this myth, isn't there, that teachers are somehow more intelligent than the parents, and and they know better about the children than the parents do, which is obviously nonsense, because only the parents know their children, what's best for their children. But but it was a good documentary. And I think was it on did he post the documentary on Instagram, or was it just a link to it? I can't remember. It was
a link. There's a link in his bio. It's on his YouTube. But you say parents know kids best, and there's actually a guest we're going to have on hopefully soon. She's a homeschooling expert, and I read her book and I like fell in love with her, like for real. And there's this thing that you have to have 10,000 hours with a subject or doing something to be an expert at it. Part of her thing about homeschooling is that by the time your kids are school aged, you've spent like 16,000 hours with them. So you are going to know them better than any teacher is going to know them. And, them thinking that they're the experts on your kids, that's not life.
I don't know whether it's the same in America, but here we would have maybe 30 children in a class with maybe one, possibly two teaching assistants. And that teacher is supposed to know every single one of those children, really well. But with your homeschooling and you've got two, possibly three of your own children, you are going to know those children well. You've only got 3 or 4 of them, or whatever it is, how many kids you've
even
got. So
with large families, they, by the time you're teaching your young ones, the big ones are doing their school on their own. So you can focus on the kids that need your help. And but they're your kids. So you're always going to know them better than the teacher, no matter what. Like with my oldest kid, they went to school for a little bit, and we were so lucky that they had a teacher that, honest to God, loved them like they were her grandkids. Like you could tell she just wanted everything, the whole world for these kids. But not every teacher is like that. And we were super lucky, but that's not the norm.
Well, the first time I ever encountered a problem with a fellow teacher, she was a teaching assistant, and this has got nothing to do with what's going on today, but it was the first time where I thought, oh my God, people are using the teaching platform to indoctrinate people. And it was teenagers again, so we're not talking young kids. And one of the things that they had to do, because I teach English, and one of the things that they have to do is they have to stand up and do a presentation. I don't know whether you call it the same thing. And they have to do a few during the year. And often I would give them a subject, and usually the more controversial the subject, the better it is, because you get more input from other people with their opinions as well. And at the time, again, this will probably be alien to Americans, but we had fox hunting in this country. I don't know whether it's something you're aware of or whether you do yourself. I don't know. It became a really hot topic where people wanted to ban it. And this guy, he came from a country background, so he knew about the other side of the argument. And he put forward his points of why fox hunting was a good thing. And then the teaching assistant went crazy. She went absolutely crazy, saying how evil he was and how wrong he was. And I had to take her out of the room. And I had to say, look, it's not about you. This isn't about fox hunting. This is about class. It's about him speaking in public. It doesn't matter what he's saying. And as long as what he's saying is legal, you can't do this. And that was when I first realized people were using teaching as a way to indoctrinate people, because she was trying to tell them what her beliefs were. And she was a vegan. So she was always telling people how wrong it was to eat animals. And it's like, yeah, you are perfectly entitled to have that opinion, but you don't try and make kids believe that. That's not your place.
Right. And that's the thing. It's that they have these ideas, and that's fine, but your ideas don't have to be my ideas. And that's the thing that I was noticing a lot this weekend on Instagram. And so on Instagram, I was posting the abortion stuff, and people are just losing their minds. And I'm a hypocrite, and I'm a racist, and I'm a you love the kid as long as it's in the womb. Once it's out of the womb, you don't do anything for it. And what if that kid's queer? You hate it then. And all of these arguments that are not based on anything about me. And so my response started to be, I think you're projecting. And most people ignored my response, but there was one person that I'm actually debating about messaging them again, because privately messaging them, because I said, I think you're projecting. And they said, what would I be projecting? I'm queer, I'm this. And I said, I think that you are looking at me as a Christian and saying these things that happen to you because of other Christians. And I said, and I'm very sorry that happened to you. And then all of a sudden they were softer, and we were talking, and we actually agreed on something.
That's quite interesting, because my background. I started off as a Christian and then became an atheist, and now I'm an agnostic now. But when I was younger, I was very anti-Christian, and it's because of my past experiences with people way back when, and I think when I realized at whatever age I was that Christians are different. They're people like anybody else, and there are good people and there are bad people in every group. But I had one person, just one, that actually had a sensible discussion about it. And we talked for ages privately in a direct message. And at the end of it, it was like, oh, it's so nice to be able to debate without name calling. Whereas every other conversation I had, immediately they went in for the kill. In fact, I had one that just posted privately again, though, die. And then, afterwards I said, oh, do you mean die with a Y, as in, die wool? And then she replied and said, oh, you're a fat, ugly white man, and I just went, oh, well, charming, and it's like, oh, just because I didn't agree. And what I find, and what I don't understand, is how they don't understand that at some point in their life, something is going to come along that they're not going to agree with the majority. And what are they going to do then? Because at the moment they're agreeing on abortion between themselves, or they're agreeing on race, or they're agreeing on transgender. But there's going to be something else next week that they might not agree with. And then will they just change their view to fit in? Possibly. I don't know.
They might be. But the thing about this person was, once I said that about, I think that you're projecting how you feel about Christians onto me. And I'm not angry about it. I don't think that that's my faith. And, you to say that all Christians are terrible isn't really accurate. And then they were like, yeah, I was raised Southern Baptist and this and that. And I said, a lot of people in the church forget that Jesus's number one command was to love your neighbor as yourself. And so, I'm not saying anything bad about any other religions or people's faith or whatever, but I can still love people when I don't agree with them. And that's the problem that nobody can do anymore.
Yeah. It's that, well, we've talked about this before as well. It's the sin versus the sinner argument, isn't it? It's like, the whole point, I mean, I don't believe, but the whole point of Jesus was that he surrounded himself with sinners. None of the people that he was around were perfect people that hadn't sinned, not one. you know, they were either tax collectors or they were prostitutes or they were whatever, you know, in terms of religion back then, things that were bad. So yeah, all Christians are sinners and you know, yeah, so I don't know what to say more about that, but you're right.
Yeah, and you know, I know that abortion is such a crazy topic. People get so worked up about it, and I understand because it's really personal, it's really upsetting. There's a lot of things, but if anybody watching has had an abortion, I'm sure you had reasons for it. I'm sure that you have feelings about it, and I'm not going to judge you for doing it. I don't think it's right, but I'm never going to say, well, you're a terrible person for doing it. And that's the main difference, because we want kids to not be killed. We're horrible. And I just don't, people were telling me, oh, they're parasites, they're this, they're that. And I'm like,
yeah, I got that one. Yeah. Well, I made a point where he said, oh, they're parasites. I said, hang on. I said, every child is a parasite until they leave home. You know, it's like you were a parasite.
After. A lot of children are parasites. I said something, there's a meme that I saw and I sent it to my mom, and it's like, Mom, when are these kids going to stop asking me all these questions? And it says, well, you're 30 and you're still doing it. Like, it's just, that's the nature of having kids, and that's okay.
Well, I think the reason why they get so, I mean, I'm probably wrong, it's just my own opinion, but I think it's because when they get so angry about the abortion issues, because they know if they've had to have an abortion, that in some way they failed in some way. They failed to use contraception. You know, they failed to avoid getting pregnant. You know, it's like considering all, you know, reasonably intelligent people to not understand the basics of contraception, you know, must be a bit of a shock, you know, when you think, oh, I'm pregnant, you know, what do I do now? But one thing I wanted to talk about was condoms. I don't know whether this will affect the YouTube channel or not, but one thing people keep saying is like, I can, you know, I keep throwing back, well, use condoms, but condoms are only 99%, you know, effective. And it's like, well, if you do the deed, you know, 100 times, 99 times, you won't get pregnant. It's just that once you might in that 100 times. So just because something is only 99% effective, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, because those people are saying that, and that's the reason why they don't use them. It's like, well, that's not a good enough reason. And then you think, well, hang on, go back to the 80s and 90s. When gay men were dying of HIV and AIDS before, you know, it was there were any drugs to help, they weren't turning around saying, oh, it's only 99% effective to use a condom, because, you know, they knew it was life or death, you know. So it's like, it's a similar thing, you know, if you but in the opposite way around, it's life or death, isn't it? You know, using a condom in every context. So
yeah, but one of the things that I really got really made people angry was by saying it's personal responsibility.
yes.
And
you know,
like my argument is, okay, so before you do it, you can have a birth control and IUD, there's spermicide and condoms and just all kinds of different things that are available. And if you plan ahead, and or if you don't plan ahead and you have all that available to you, then you know your risk and you're saying it's okay. But then abortion should not be a form of birth control. And people were like, well, what about incest? What about rape? What about this? And I said, okay, vaguely, Neil's got the statistics, but like about 6% of abortions are because like it's threatening the life of the mother, it's not formed properly, it's going to die, incest, rape. I said, so I'll give you that 6% if you give me the other 94% that use it as birth control. And they were just so pissed at me. They were like, oh, so you're saying it's okay in some of these situations? I'm saying, no, I don't agree with it. But if I said in those situations you can do it if you stop all the rest, would you do it? And they won't give an inch, because it's not about those situations. And so they don't know what to do when you say that, because they don't have an argument for it. Okay, I'll give you all of that. Stop the rest of them. They don't know what to do.
Well, one thing I said was I put it into 3 categories. So one was rape and incest. I put them together. The other one was some kind of either death or illness of the mother if the pregnancy carried on. And then the third one, just contraception, should have been contraception. And I was saying, the percentage of the first two is so low that we should just look at them on a case by case basis, and not have a particular law for it, but just look at each case and then let people who have more knowledge about it help those people in whatever way they need help. But then the rest of them, they need to be taking responsibility for what's happened. Because the thing is, a woman can't, well, there are things she can do to reduce the risk, but if a woman's going to get raped, it's not going to necessarily be anything she can do about at that particular moment in time. But the chances of her getting pregnant from that are so low that it's minuscule to legislate on everything based on those very, very rare cases. Right. But I did a bit of homework. I prepared right now. I don't know if you can see it. I'm hoping the viewers can see it. So the first one is the percentage. These are American figures as far as I know. And excuse my poor writing, I did it quickly. So 0.001% is as the result of incest. So these are abortion figures. So that is very low. 0.065% are where the mother is, the life of the mother is threatened in some way. So again, that is minuscule. 0.085 are because of rape or rope. I think I've written there, but it's supposed to be rape. Then it starts to get a little bit higher, but still really low. 0.288%. So let's call that 3%, just round it up. That's for a health threat to the mother. So it's not life threatening, but it's going to do some damage if the pregnancy carries on. And then another, let's call it 3%, is if it has some kind of psychological damage, or it could cause psychological damage to the mother. And then an interesting number here, 0.666 is if it's the beast. No, if there's a fetal abnormality. So but I'm assuming by this we're talking serious things. We're not talking about cleft lip or something that is easily treatable. Then it starts to go higher, where it's 6.3, shall we say, for economic reasons, where they don't feel they have enough money to look after this child. And then the number that we're talking about that you were just mentioning there is 92% of all American abortions. And I think this is probably, I bet it's the same in most of the Western world, is purely because they didn't use contraception. It's just because they don't want that baby, and that's the number that I think needs to focus. We need to focus on. It's those people, if they stopped, having abortions instead of using contraception, the other abortions, we could look at them in a much more sensible way. And, the money that is spent on doing abortions, because a lot of it, I don't know what it's like in your country, but here you can get, a woman can get an abortion on the NHS, so she doesn't have to pay anything, or the father doesn't have to pay anything. But that money should really be spent on the people that are pregnant, not because they couldn't be bothered using contraception. You know what I mean? The people that are raped, that tiny insignificant, well, not insignificant, you know what I mean, the tiny number, or the people that have got a fetus that's got a life threatening abnormality for itself or for the mother. Those are ones where I have sympathy for those mothers. I would really want to help them in any way that is available. Whereas the people that just couldn't be bothered using contraception, I just don't have any empathy for those people. I just think, no, right. I'm being a bit cruel, I think. I don't know.
But that's how I feel about it too, because it's hard to have empathy for somebody who has gone through life making these choices. Like, if you didn't plan ahead and you didn't take personal responsibility, then I don't feel that bad for you. And then there's the people who blame the men. They call them inseminators. First off, you're a bunch of weirdos. But second, like I've seen the argument that all men should be required to have a vasectomy. And then if they want to have kids, they should have it reversed. And I said, so you're saying that every man should be required to have surgery? That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I just.
The way, I think sex education in schools, I think the way it should be is, yes, the men are, what's the word, less, they hold less responsibility, and that's the way it is. We've talked about this before as well. It's like, whether it's right or wrong, they are not the ones that are going to be responsible for bringing, that child into the world, so we say, and then raising it necessarily. But men, if they don't want to get pregnant, they will. If they don't want their girlfriends and wives to get pregnant, they will use condoms. Now, if that was taught, look, you are going to create a baby if you don't use a condom, and then if men were responsible, doesn't absolve women from their responsibility either. If both parties were using whatever contraception they are comfortable with, then the chances of a pregnancy are significantly lower. So even that 1% where the condom will split, which I have to say, it's never happened to me. maybe, why some people do it differently, I don't know. But, if you put it on right, it doesn't split. Is that the case? I don't know. But, if I'm, if the man, so I'll say if I'm as the man, if I'm using contraception and if the woman is using contraception, it seemed, it would be an immaculate conception, wouldn't it, if it happened, and if both people were responsible. Yeah.
Yeah, the odds of both failing are very, very low, I'm sure. But but what kills me about this argument about all men should be required to have a vasectomy is what happened to my body, my choice. If I can't be told that I can't have an abortion, how can I tell you that you need to have that done? Like,
yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It just and that's the problem. You can't really be logical with these people, which is sad. But it really struck me this weekend, especially, how evil people are. They are so stubborn about killing babies. They refuse to acknowledge that it's a baby. They refuse to acknowledge that. So what I was saying to some people, I actually stopped engaging on my posts, really, because I was depressed. And because you can't live in this constant, and I think that's part of what's wrong with these people too, is that if the world is so hopeless, how can you continue to have a positive outlook on things? You have to be mentally troubled. But I don't know. I forgot where I was going with that, but they're just, so I said, okay, so it gets a heartbeat generally around 6 weeks is the consensus. It has its own DNA. And, how can you abort it? And they're like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's part of her body. It says it has its own DNA. If I had a dog here and I killed it because it was a dog, you would say that's wrong.
Yeah.
It's its own thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, they don't even, I think the thing is that they don't even consider a fetus to be in the same league as an animal, Right. So to them, it's not human, but it's not even alive. Well, sometimes I wonder, would they feel the same way if their dog was pregnant? And would they pay to have? I don't know. Assume it's possible to give a dog an abortion. Would they? I bet they wouldn't. I bet they'd be like, oh no, oh, little puppies,
I don't know. The whole thing is weird, and it's I had somebody tell me that a human's gestation period is actually 12 months, and the final 3 for the baby take place outside of the womb. And so I said to them, is it okay to kill a 3-month-old baby then? And they never responded to me, but they have started to really other babies. And that's what it is. It's that making it non-human, making it into something that it's not. And it's really disturbing.
Well, I'm going back, centuries and centuries, but back in the Roman Empire days, a child wasn't considered a human until it was 2 years old. So until the age of 2, parents could kill the child and there would be no consequences. For example, and even the Greeks, I think, the Spartans, they particularly, the boys, they were raised to be warriors. And if a child, under the age of 6, if they were weak in any way, they could be killed, and often they died during the training anyway, because they were taken away from the mothers to be trained as warriors. Now, this, you might think, well, what's that got to do with anything? But the thing is, everything that happened in the Roman Empire at the end is happening here now. So the Romans at the end they were all cross-dressing. They were, it was a bit like Sodom and Gomorrah, however you feel about that is a different matter. But, they stopped being warriors and became completely obsessed with themselves. And that, I think, is what's happening now, is these people are obsessed with themselves, because the issue of abortion is often me, 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 me. If I have a baby, I won't have this. I want this. I want a career. I want a great body. I want, to do this. I want to go traveling. Whereas if they have a baby, they can't do those things necessarily at that point. Like there was there was the actress, wasn't there, who said that if she hadn't had her 2 abortions, she wouldn't have won the Oscar.
Yeah,
And you
Michelle
just think,
Williams.
yeah, and she was kind of holding the Oscar like it was a baby, and you just think, what would you trade your children for an Oscar?
No.
Really?
No, I cannot. I cannot even get on the same plane as the people who say things like that, because neither of my children were like planned.
Mm-hmm.
They both came about and we were surprised, but
magically.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happens. But even though my husband and I weren't like planning on having them, it was never an option of like continuing our life without them. You know what I mean? And yeah, things were harder. And when the first one was born, we decided that I was going to stop working, because once we did the math, I wasn't going to make any money. I was going to pay to put them in daycare. And so we said, well, why would we do that?
What's
That's
the point?
just dumb.
Yeah.
So like our standard of living changed and things, and people are so, you're right, they're obsessed with themselves. They want certain things. And so that's how they look at it. Whereas my husband and I, we have very good friends, one's a doctor and one's a professor. And we have the same standard of living as them, because we are careful and we plan and they don't ruin your life. You just can't necessarily live the exact same way as you always have. And that's not a bad thing.
No, well, the thing is, as you get older anyway, like I probably, because I don't have kids, and I probably did the going out drinking, having a great time for longer than someone who, had children. Probably up till about the age of 40, I was still doing that, loving it. But then once you get to 40, it's, your body changes, your brain changes, and those things no longer interest me. I don't want to be going out drinking. And, the best night for me is sat in front of the telly with my feet up and the knitting in my hands. If I had a pipe, I'd smoke it. No, I don't smoke. But everything changes, and there's a natural thing to our lives and our bodies and the way we are. We slow down. And the thing is like now I'm entering a stage of my life where if I'd had children, they would be helping me in my life now. You know what I mean? They would be probably 20, probably could be 30 actually, could be, so I would probably have grandchildren because I'm old enough to be a grandparent. But that isn't going to happen. So there are parts of me that regret that now, because I think, that's a part of life that is supposed to, not everyone deserves that, but that's supposed to happen. It isn't supposed to be that you work every hour to get as far as you can in your job. The whole purpose of being alive, I know this is, a lot of people would disagree, but if you think of it from an animal point of view, the purpose of being alive is for you to survive, to procreate, and then to make sure that your progeny, or whatever the phrase is, so that they survive and that the race and the breed and the species survives. And that's the only reason we exist. I know that, well, you probably feel differently being religious, but from an animalistic point of view, that's why animals exist.
Right.
And so what I think part of the problem is now everybody has been given choice. And although choice can be a good thing, too much choice is a bad thing. So now you've got people not having kids until quite late in life. So you've got women now that are perhaps 40 having children, and that increases the risk of problems that could happen to the baby or to the mother. But also it means that the mother is likely to die at an earlier stage in the child's life than perhaps evolutionarily, I don't think that's a real word, evolutionary, that it perhaps should be. Your mother needs to be around their daughters with their kids for as long as possible, because that should be the way life is, that the grandmothers help the mothers with their children and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't seem to happen anymore.
Yeah.
I know it happens in some cases, but not across the board.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm lucky that I've got 3 mothers that help me with my kids. I've got a mom and a stepmom and my mother-in-law. So I've got the 3 mothers that help me. But I get kind of what you're getting at, because my husband is actually 46. Right. So he was older when we had our kids, and unfortunately it's just the life that his families aren't going to be around as long, and you do need them to help. Holy moly, if I didn't have the support of my family, and I get that I'm super lucky when it comes to that. I have a supportive husband, I have family. Honestly, my family fights over who gets, not fights, but they're like, oh, I haven't seen the kids, can I have them? And somebody else is like, oh, I'd like to have the kids this weekend. And I'm like, but we want to do something with the kids. Like, and it's a great problem to have, but
I'm not saying that people should have kids purely as to look after them in their old age, but I'm just sort of saying that that's kind of the way life should be, really. Like I'm at a point now where I'm having to look after my mum a little bit more than was necessary, a few years ago. So, I know that is only going to increase as time goes on. I'm going to have to do more for her than I do now, even. And I often wonder what will happen to me in 20, 30 years time if I make it that long, because I don't have the kids to do that. But yeah, so I sometimes, well, we've gone off the subject of abortion, really, haven't we? We're kind of into a wider thing. Well, I wanted to mention something about what you said earlier about not hating people that have had abortions. I've got 2 very, very good friends that I know of that had abortions. We don't agree on the subject at all. We've never argued about it because we just don't talk about it, but I don't have any animosity towards them both for doing what they've done. I don't agree with it, and funnily enough, at the time they had the abortions, I probably agreed. Well, I did agree with them, whereas now I don't. But I don't like it that it happened, and I don't like my part in it, as in I helped one of them. I drove one of them to the abortion place, and I wish that I hadn't done that. Now I wish I'd tried to talk her out of it, but I just wish that people would listen to other options before they dive into that particular way of dealing with the issue. If anybody hasn't heard of Anna Knitter, I don't know whether you've heard of her, Deplorable. She and I had a chat recently, and she's in Germany, and she works for an organization that actually help pregnant women in any way they need the help. So if they need financial help, they help them. If they need emotional support, they will help. I think they even look after the child, so that until the mother knows, better on how to do it. And they do that until the mother no longer needs it. And she said that usually that's 1 to 2 years. So these people that say no one will support me, there are plenty of people that will support them if they're pregnant. They just have to look for that, I think.
Yeah. I think that here in the US, that's something that could be more prominent. I know when I was in high school, my mom worked for this place called Crisis Pregnancy Services, and I don't believe that they're still around, but they were an alternative to Planned Parenthood, so that the people who needed help didn't know what to do. I mean, it was a Christian organization, but they weren't saying don't get an abortion because God hates you if you get an abortion. They were like, here, these are other things that you could do, and they did help a lot of parents, a lot of mothers, and I think that that's something we could do better. We could promote these organizations more, make them more visible, because everybody knows the words Planned Parenthood. I'm sure even you do in England, and that's a US thing. So we need to, and that's a lot of the arguments were, well, what are you doing afterwards? You hate the babies afterwards. Well, I know a lot of people who do a lot of things for babies after they're born, and work with a lot of organizations, or donate, or give time or materials or whatever it is. And so I think that that's like a fallacy that they like to throw out too, because if you volunteer, if you are supporting in other ways, it's not something that's like generally out in the open. It's not like
well, here's something for people to think about. It's like somebody once said to me, why haven't you adopted a child then? So as a single old white man, what do you think they would say? You know, some of those people, these people that are saying, why don't you? If I did do that, I know the immediate thing that they would be saying is, oh, why has he adopted that child? You know, and I also sort of feel that a child needs both parents. If you're single, yeah, I know there are some great single mothers, there are some great single dads, but that is not the ideal place for a child to grow up. There's a better way, even though you're doing the best you can in the situation you're in. I don't think you should deliberately, purposefully bring a child into a single environment. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't know how to explain it, because I'm not saying that you shouldn't have the child if you're a single parent. That isn't what I'm saying. But I think if you possibly can avoid it, don't, you know, have the other parent missing. Do you know what I'm saying? Am I contradicting myself there? I don't know. I'm kind of backing myself into a corner, I think.
But you're right. There is something to be said about, I mean, there are lots of single parents that do a great job. And I have a sister-in-law who is a single parent, and her daughter is great. But you should see her when my husband is around, because she craves that. She roughhouses with him, and she loves to like get his approval and stuff, because it's different than her mother. And it's not bad, and it's not, but she really loves, you know, my husband loves to pick on the kids, you know, he's roughhouses and teases, and it's a different thing than a mom does. Moms are, it's just life. And it goes back to men and women are different, and they do different things, and they act differently. And
well, the other thing about that is that children model their future partners on one, you know, their parent, generally, whichever the parent it is. I'm not saying that, you know, they fancy their parents. That isn't what I'm saying. But the model is there for how they treat the spouse. So they will be looking for a man that treats them the same way the father treated the mother, for example. And often, you know, when you have people in abusive relationships, you often find out that the parents, whichever one was abusive, that kind of gets repeated. It's almost like they look for what their parent had with their other spouse. Sorry, I've lost my point. I forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, so that's the reason why I wouldn't adopt as a single person. And also, I'm old now, you know what I mean? It's like I would only have X amount of years to spend with a child, you know what I mean? It's like, is it fair at my age? Because I'm older than it's naturally possible for a woman to become pregnant. So is it fair? I mean, I suppose you've considered this with your husband as well. Is your husband's not as old as I am, but, you know, did you say he was 46? Yeah. So, you know, that's the age a lot of women go through menopause, isn't it? And I know some don't, some are earlier, some are later, but around between 40 and 50 is usually the fertility threshold. You know, should people above 50 be doing that? I don't know. Should they? I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying there.
No, I get it though. I mean, just because somebody is not in the position to adopt doesn't mean that they have to approve of abortion. And I think that what's going on with this argument is that they're conflating a lot of issues. They're saying, well, if you don't want abortion, then you should be adopting. Well, I'm not in a position to adopt.
Which is why, like, I don't have kids. You know, it's like, you know, I could be, you know, impregnating anybody and everybody I contact, you know. But the reasons why I have made sure, you know, that there are no little me's out there is the same reason why I'm not adopting someone. You know, it's exactly the same thing. So it's responsibility, it's self-responsibility, isn't it?
Well, it's that personal responsibility that they were so mad at me about saying. But you know, so I don't have to approve of abortion. I also don't have to adopt. I have, and I come from a place of privilege. I'm in a stable relationship. We aren't wealthy, but we aren't poor. You know what I mean? So I understand that not everybody's in our spot, but also I wasn't always married to my husband, and I don't have any other kids from other people. And you know,
well, there's an assumption, isn't there, that so say the 92% that we were talking about before, abortions that are the result of not having contraception, is that in our sort of not ideal, but in our better world as we imagine in it, is that those 92% those pregnancies wouldn't have existed. So, you know, it's not a case of having to find a home for those children that haven't been aborted. There wouldn't be a need for that because those children wouldn't have been conceived. You know, it wouldn't have happened because they would have been protection. So it's like they think there's always going to be these pregnancies. Well, there will in reality. That, you know, it's not going to stop overnight. But if only, you know, it's all about the beforehand. If they could stop it beforehand, there wouldn't be a need for adoption or abortion.
You're right. That's exactly it. And that's I don't think anybody's saying that, but I know some people who are religious and watching this might be mad at me, but I personally think that if we're going to say there should be no abortions, there should be plenty of options for people to prevent them, because we live in a sinful world. And I know the Bible says that from the first moment, God knows who the baby is and all of that. And so some forms of birth control aren't condoned by the church because, like, a fertilized egg can be made to not implant. So therefore, you're still killing a baby that God made.
Yeah.
But I think that there's an extent where we need to say we live in a sinful world. We need to make this easier for people so that at 20 weeks or at 16 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever it is, they're not aborting babies. Like, it's not perfect. God might say I'm wrong for having this viewpoint, but I think that if we're going to try to live in a world where we say, don't abort, there has to be another option. You can't get rid of all birth controls and IUDs and stuff. It's just... Yeah,
it's that thing of, you know, there might have to be this smaller number of abortions to save, you know, all these millions of abortions from happening. Do you understand? Yeah, it's like, so you know, it's letting that sin happen to stop that sin happen. I mean, and that kind of it's not as easy to do that, you know, if you do black and white Bible readings, is it? You know, there's a nuance there.
Right.
Because am I right that, because I was brought up as a Catholic, and I think I might be wrong on this, so the Catholics who are watching, because I know there's a few that do watch, hopefully they'll say in the comments, but I think that even condoms are not allowed in the Catholic religion. You know, no form of...
Yeah, you're not supposed to use birth control, from what I understand, in like very strict Catholic churches. I mean, the Pope now is goofy, and I don't think he cares. But
well, he's resigning soon, apparently, isn't he? I heard.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, he's thinking about it. So,
but it's one of those things where we live in a sinful world. So if we're gonna say this thing is bad, we have to have some sort of concession. And I know a lot of people might not agree with that as Christians, but people aren't going to do abstinence. Like, let's just be honest. It's not going to happen. So if you don't want abortion, what are we going to do? How can we support people the best way we can? Is it by, you know, making sure that condoms are available and birth control is easy to get? And like, you can't get rid of all of it.
Well, if you flip the way the world is now, so if we look at like all the steps that say, for, you know, like when gay sex and gay, that was legalized, or it was decriminalized, I should say. And then there was this group was allowed, and then this law was passed. And people have always said, oh, well, it'll be the pedophiles next, or it'll be this next. It'll be, and so far it's been proven to be right, is that when you get some land, let's say land in the social sphere, then you're going to go for the next bit of land, and then you're going to go for the next bit of land. And I think in terms of the fight against abortion, that's how people should sort of approach it, is go for the small steps and try and keep getting more land, and hopefully at some point you may get what you really want. But if you try and get what you really want now, there's too much opposition, there's too much land in between. You can only do little small steps. So
right. And then,
sorry, no, go on.
No, I was just going to say, and it's like the stuff in the classrooms, they started teaching about, oh, well, there's these different kinds of families, and it's pretty innocuous, and it's true. So it's okay to teach that. But then, Johnny likes to wear a tutu. Okay, well, that makes me feel
which one
weird,
of these 90 genders do you feel like today?
Yeah, but it didn't start as 90 genders. It started as, oh, well, here's this. Oh, well, you can wear a dress if you want to. Oh, you can, and all of a sudden,
nobody was hurt when the trans were reading stories to the children, the drag queens. So why not have a pedophile read stories to them? Because nothing happened to them then, and that was fine. This is the kind of thing that's going on. Because that's off subject as well, but I just don't understand the drag queen story. I just don't get it. I just don't understand why it ever became a thing.
I don't know. As an adult, I had opportunities in my 20s to go to like drag shows and stuff, and I just never did, because I was like, why? Like, it just wasn't appealing to me. But that's an adult thing. If you're an adult and you find that an amusing form of entertainment, go for it. Yeah. Personally, I don't want it as an adult, and I certainly don't want my kids going to anything where these people are. But that's and that's
when they get to 18, 21, they can go where they like, can't they? Then if they want to do that, then they can go off and do it.
And that's something that's appropriate for them when they're 18 or 21 or whatever it is. It's not appropriate for them at 6 and 9, which is what I have. Like, come on. It's all related, even though it seems off topic. All of these things kind of come back together, don't they?
Well, something that I found out recently, as I was kind of doing a little bit of reading, I don't think I've mentioned this already, but have I mentioned about the laws in Britain? I've not mentioned
haven't.
One thing I didn't know, and I only found out today, so I was this years old until I found this, is that it's actually illegal to have an abortion in Britain. So not in the UK. So Northern Ireland is separate to Britain. So in Scotland, England, and Wales, it's illegal to have an abortion. So if a woman has an abortion, she theoretically could spend life in prison, depending on what, the severity as it was seen. Now, in 1967, there was a law passed called the Abortion Act, and we all think that meant that it was now legal to have an abortion, but it didn't. All it did was it gave exemptions to women. So, for example, it gave them loopholes to get around the crime. And that loophole was that they have to have 2 doctors agree that she can have an abortion. Now, in practice now, that no 2 doctors are ever going to disagree. They're never going to say, no, you can't have an abortion. So women can have an abortion whenever they want. This is, well, up until 24 weeks here. That's the cutoff here. But I just thought it was a bit interesting. It's like, oh, I really didn't know that it is still illegal. So because of what's happened with Roe v. Wade in America, the people here that are pro-abortion are going crazy, because this has now started to come to light, and people have been looking into it, like I have, but for a different reason. And they've now found out that if a different kind of government got in, they could make it illegal again. Well, it is still legal, but they could take away the doctor part of it, so that you could be criminalized for having an abortion or even performing an abortion. And so I think that we in this country are probably going to overreact to what's happened in America, and they're going to change our laws to suit the pro-abortionists, which I just think is quite sad, because at least at the moment there's a there's a little gap in a window somewhere where a future government could make it hard to have an abortion. And that's what I would like to see personally. I would like to see it as hard as possible to achieve. I'm not saying absolutely no in all cases, because, you know, there's always going to be an exception, but it shouldn't be as easy as just racking up one day to a clinic and then going home in the afternoon, you know?
Right. And, you know, I just don't understand the people who are so rabid about this. And I saw a mother, she's a mother, who had on her belly, that was very pregnant, "This is not yet a human." And it's like,
What is it then?
your stomach is out to here, you're giant, you're about to burst, you've been feeling it move around for how long, and you say it's not a person? Like, I don't, the level of evil inside of them, like, I don't know, maybe there's a better way to say that than evil, but I just can't. How can you say that's not a person, especially
Yeah, I
with
mean,
how she was? If she had had that baby right then, it probably was viable, it probably
yeah.
would have been born and fine. And how can you say it's not yet a human? Like,
I think it's that thing of where out of sight, you know, they, you know, if you cannot see it, they don't acknowledge that it's a human. You know, even when they see the ultrasounds and so on, I mean, I know they're getting more and more detailed now, but it still doesn't look like a baby looks when it's, you know, it still looks a little bit abstract. It's a little bit pixelated, you know, and I think until you can actually see everything about that baby, they won't see it as a baby. I had one girl, she was 21, and we had an argument. She was the one that wanted me to die. And one of the things that she said was, I will name my next abortion Neil. I just thought, I don't think she had an abortion. I think they just say that now. But I was thinking, okay, you're 21, potentially you've already had one abortion, and you're almost planning your second one, and you're going to name it just to annoy me. You know, like I would know she'd done that. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, I won't know that she's done it because she won't be in contact with me. But I know what you mean about the evil thing. I mean, I do, even though I'm not religious, I do think there is such a thing as evil. You know, I do think that whether it's psychotic or whether it's a force, I don't know. I don't want to think, you know, I don't know. I can't speak about that. But when you see their faces, when they're saying these things, there's something in their eyes that isn't right. And I don't know what it is. And all I think of is evil. You know, you know, do you know what I mean when I say that? There's something.
Well, some of these people are almost foaming at the mouth. They're so angry about it, and it's not natural. It's not a normal. I've never been in a situation where I have had that level of hate towards somebody. So it's hard. I think that's probably part of it. It's very hard for me to understand because, I mean, we've had Birdie on, and she doesn't agree with us in abortion, but we are still able to get along. You don't agree with us about religion, and that's fine. And because I respect you and you respect me, and I've never been in a situation where I have felt the need to actually, like, physically throw myself at somebody because I don't agree with them. And it's very hard to understand for me. It really is.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? It's funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's amusing in a weird way. That it's almost like religion as it was 500 years ago, but for them. You know, like they're the, you know, the rabid Christians that were, you know, burning witches and were, you know, but to the people who are religious and the people that don't agree with them. So it's almost like a flip. It's like they're the religious ones now.
Well, I mean, people do really say that woke is a religion. And I think a lot of people, it creates the space inside of. So when you don't believe in anything, I believe, this is just me, that you need to fill that hole with something.
Yeah, I know. I know what you're saying.
And so
knitting is a good thing to fill in.
But these people who are so crazy about wokeness and transgender and abortion, that's their religion. That's what they filled the empty parts of themselves with. And that's why you can't reason with them, you can't talk to them. because they don't have anything else that fulfills them, and so they've filled themselves with woke. And
Because
if you,
it has rituals, it has penance, it has what do you call it, sacrifices. I'm not talking about killing people, sacrificing things for the benefit of the woke. I think the only thing it doesn't have that maybe it does, but it doesn't have a deity. It doesn't have a singular God, so I don't know what that's probably money, isn't it? It's probably money that they worship that with. But yeah, it is definitely a religion. I was trying to explain to my mum recently, because I've been telling her all about the knitting wars, and she just finds it unbelievable. She just doesn't understand it, and I was trying to explain exactly what you said, where you can't. So say, for example, I tried to talk you out of believing in God. What are the chances? How successful would I be? Yeah, you're not going to change your mind based on anything I'm ever going to say to you, are you? You know what I mean? It'd have to be a bloody good, thing to turn you away from your religion. And they're the same. We're never going to turn them away from their religion unless they choose to walk away from it. So there's not really any point trying to. But it's the problem that we've got as a society, though, is that they're in the chambers of power. And they are now making decisions for everybody and everybody's children based upon their religion. It's going back to, the old days where, everything was about, the Christian God in every aspect of your life. And luckily that has kind of moved on. And I think most people are happy that happened. I don't think there's many people that would like every single thing to go back to being about the Bible and so on. Because if you think about it, getting into religion, there's certain things that are in the Bible that, we've moved on, little silly things like not being able to wear mixed fibers is in the Old Testament. I mean, I know Christians don't necessarily, live by the Old Testament. So there's, it has evolved, which is good, but I've completely lost my point. Go on.
well, I have something that for you. I think though, that because we've taken religion out of everything, people have lost their moral compass. And I think that that's a bad thing about it. I don't think that, I mean, like I'm personally am a Lutheran. So my church doesn't pray to Mary to intervene for us, but the Catholics do. So, there's things that everybody doesn't agree on in religion. And some people don't agree with how my church worships compared to like a Baptist church. And that's just like personal opinion on the thing. But I think, and I don't think that, Lutherans should run the world and make everybody agree with them. But I think that when you take it out completely, the way that it has been done is that you lose moral standards. And then that's the problem. It's not that it has to be religion, but with science, we don't know what a woman is. We don't know what a baby is. We don't know. And I believe part of it is because we've taken out these standards.
I used to disagree with you because I used to think, well, I'm not religious, but I have morals, until I really thought about it and then thought, hang on, I was brought up as a Catholic, and my dad, before I was born, it wasn't after I was born, but before I was born, he was a policeman. So, sorry, the cat's tail there, hello. So obviously some morals from both of those places were instilled in me as a very small child. My dad is an atheist still, but he has a very strong moral compass in terms of, the law and what is right and what is wrong. And my mum was a practicing Catholic. Her mother was a convert to Catholicism. So she was very strict, because that's usually happens, doesn't it? Converts are usually much stricter. So I don't think I was intrinsically moral like I used to think I was. I think I was taught that. So there's definitely something in what you're saying there, definitely. Would I have been moral if I had no influence from either religion or the law, I don't know.
Right. And then you've got the people part of the problem of this generation that we're trying to fight. I've noticed a lot of the people on my posts, I mean, this is just me looking at Instagram, but they're young. They're 18, 19, 20. They're women that have, their profiles full of bikini pictures and them being very provocative. And
Yeah.
and I'm wondering if part of this rabid philosophy is because as they were growing up, their parents didn't say things to them. Like I say to my kids, no, we just don't do that. That's not right.
Yeah.
We don't treat people that way. We don't do this. We don't. And we have a very permissive society now. And is that part of why they hate it when we try to tell them something?
Yeah, well, I think the other thing is social media, and I have a theory, and this will probably offend people watching because there are people our age that do this as well. But I often look at someone's social media and I see what they've posted, and if your last 5 posts was a photograph of yourself, all 5, I tend to think they're a narcissist. If all of it is themselves, they are a narcissist. Whereas when I post, it's usually my cats. There might be a bit of me in the picture, with the cat as well, but very rarely is it about me. And I think that is one of the problems, is that everything is about them. Like your children, I'm not saying they will, but they're in danger of growing up in a society where all they think about is themselves, just because of the way our society is set up now. Luckily, you're homeschooling, so you're probably breaking that a little bit with a bit of luck. But yeah, all the boys as well now, but they're all obsessed with how they look. So they've all got body dysmorphia issues of different types, whether it's anorexia or whether it's trans or whether it's this or whether it's that. Their idols are the Kardashians that have had, bum implants, whatever the hell that is. What's that about? I don't know. But, they're seeing these bizarre bodies as being perfect. And then they think they're born in the wrong body. It's like, no, you're in your body.
Right.
It's your body.
And when we had Birdie Rose on, she was saying that if this was going on when she was a kid, she did feel super awkward in her body. And I think that happens
Everybody
to a lot
does,
of people. And dude, it's part of puberty. I look at those pictures. There's the pictures from the years where I had like a bad perm and braces and acne. And God, I was such a dweeb and I was so uncomfortable. And that's normal.
Well, when I was a teenager, I used to dye my hair when I had hair, believe it or not. I used to wear black eyeliner because that was the thing everybody did then, And if that was now, they'd probably, I'd probably said, oh, I don't feel my gender, I'm this gender or that, just to be, edgy, because that's what it was all about. It's like, having your ear pierced to be edgy. And then it became tattoos to be edgy. Then it was piercings, like, everywhere else. And now it's actually changing your body. It'll go, it will all go back. Everything's a circular thing and it will go. The problem is that it'll become very conservative eventually. I don't know whether that'll be now, certainly probably not in my lifetime. Whether you'll see it, I don't know, but it'll probably go, back to Victorian values eventually, because I think that's what happens with society, unless our society completely collapses, which is a possibility. People are saying that it might, it is a real worry, this.
Right. I mean, and if we have all of our kids sterilizing themselves by switching genders and things, I mean, how will it continue even if they do go away from that? I mean,
well, we're in a situation where potentially China could invade any of our countries at any point. That is their ultimate aim. And we are now, I can't remember which podcast I was on, we were talking about armies and how if you compare the Chinese army recruitment to the American recruitment and the British recruitment, the British one is all about, your feelings and you'll be heard and people will acknowledge that you're this and you're that and whatever, and whereas the Chinese one is fight or, die. You know what I mean? It's like that simple. Right. And when, if there was a war with any of our countries, who's going to defend people? There's going to be people who are too old, and haven't got the strength to do it, who are going to have to defend people. Everyone else will be like, where's the gender neutral bathroom and where's this? And who's going to pay for my abortion? Who's going to?
Yeah, it's sad how it's going, unfortunately. And I don't, I don't think we're going to be able to change it, but I guess, keep working in your little spot on the world to do what you can.
Well, there's two really. Oh no, it's the one same image. Sorry, I was thinking it was two images, but there's an image going around that when I first saw it, I didn't notice it, but it's an American flag. Have you seen it? Where it's the coat hangers in the bit where the stars are, and then where the stripes are, it's women crawling along. It's a cartoon. It's not.
Oh, I saw that where they're bleeding.
Yeah, and just I don't know. It really bothered me because I thought, is this what they really think is going to happen? If they can't, why are you so insistent on getting pregnant? It's almost like they want to be pregnant so they can have an abortion. I'm wondering if there's if there's some kind of kudos or esteem attached to being able to say that they'd had an abortion. I don't know if that's a thing. Whether I've had an abortion, therefore I'm, cool or whatever. Because why is this insistence?
I think that they just truly believe that that's what's going to happen. And it goes back to history, and it goes back to, back in the day, people had back alley abortions, and it was bad, and things did happen. But I need to do more research. I want to find out what the Black mortality rates are for motherhood, and I want to know how much of that is because of abortion, because they say all the time that women of color have way more mortality, like way higher mortality rates than other people. And I think part of it is because as a society, as a population, they have more abortions than other people.
Well, I tell you what's interesting about that point is it's always American people that bring this point up about, and it's always then framed in the sense that Black people face discrimination in the healthcare system. Mm-hmm. So one of the interesting things then is if you compare British healthcare system, because the British healthcare system is completely, everybody has the same healthcare, basically. It doesn't matter what colour you are. And you can't say that it's a racist healthcare system, because the people in the healthcare system that are actually doing the jobs and in the charge are often completely mixed of every colour and every, so it's like, well, if it's a discrimination thing that's causing this mortality, then they're doing it to themselves. So if it isn't about abortion, what is it about pregnancies that is causing a higher death rate? Because I think women are more likely to die during pregnancy if they're Black, aren't they? That's the case, isn't it? Yes. And I think that's the case here as well. So I don't think it's anything to do with the healthcare they receive because of the experience in this country. So the question, is it abortion or is there something else that we don't know about? Mm-hmm. It's I mean, the other thing they don't like to talk about is the whole concept, going back to Planned Parenthood, is that from my limited understanding of it, is that was a racist organization at the beginning, wasn't it? It was purely to kill as many Black babies as possible.
Margaret Sanger believed in population control, and she said that the way we were going to do it is by having Black people abort their babies. And I believe, I saw this and I haven't looked into it further, but I believe it was called the Negro Project at first, because that's what they were doing. That was their goal.
Wow.
And it's like, I don't know if you know this, but the Democratic Party here has convinced people that they used to be the Republicans.
Yeah. And I know about this, yeah.
And so, they're the ones that freed the slaves, and they're not the party of the Ku Klux Klan. There was a flip, and that's what happened. That's not true.
Nonsense. It's
straight up not true. But people believe it.
Well, the thing is, it's like, in what world is every single person in government, in Congress and in, what's the other thing called in your government? Senate. The Congress and the Senate, they're all going to agree on this one thing, and that's, let's swap. Like, dude,
we can't agree on anything. Much less that. But
it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's the most ridiculous concept ever, and it is blatantly untrue. And I think all it is that they don't want to be connected. Because I mean, I know this is that when they voted to get rid of slavery, it was 100% Republicans that voted for it. Not one Democrat voted to free the slaves or to give them voting rights. I can't remember which one it was now, but it was one or the other, or maybe both. The Democrats were the people that wanted the slaves. It was the Republicans that didn't. Abraham Lincoln, wasn't he a Republican? I believe. He
was.
But so. So where are the documents? This is the thing. Where are the documents that minute the meetings where they flipped? Where are they? Let's read them.
No, it's just nonsense. But I think this whole thing, people got so mad because I kept saying, where's your personal responsibility? And I think that we just live in a society now where people don't want personal responsibility. They want to blame someone. It's not their fault. And I don't know how to combat that.
You're spot on with that. It's all about the responsibility. And one of the other arguments I often have is about so say, for instance, rape. Everything, it is the man who rapes the woman is to blame, absolutely. And I'm not saying any other case. However, there is nothing wrong with women be taking responsibility for themselves to make sure that they reduce the risk of being raped. I'm not saying that they need to dress in a certain way. I'm not saying that you're not allowed out at night. That isn't what I'm saying. All I'm saying is I would not walk around where I live here at 3 o'clock in the morning. I, as a man, would not be safe in this neighborhood at 3 a.m. The only people that are outside then are probably drug dealers, people who are up to no good. And, I'm getting old now. I'm not, as handy as I might have been years ago, and I probably can't defend myself. But there are young women that would say, well, I have the right to walk around at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like, well, yeah, you do. But should you be doing that? Is that a wise thing to do? And I was once taught this thing. I think actually it was probably my dad that taught me this. He said that there are 3 things that have to be in place for a crime to happen. You have to have a victim, a perpetrator, and you have to have an opportunity. And he said, if you take one of those away, the crime can't happen. So if you're the victim, if you make sure you can't be a victim in whatever way that is, that crime won't happen.
Right.
And obviously sometimes you are forced to be the victim. I understand that. But if you are always aware of your own place where you are, I'm often looking around and make sure that I'm okay, because it's just something I've always been used to. I think men are better at it generally. I think women aren't as good at this. I don't know why.
I don't know why either, but honestly, my husband, he takes his job of being the protector very seriously. And we have a Walmart, which is, a store.
Yeah.
And there was one, I don't know, an hour from here that somebody got stabbed in. Right. And since then, he has asked me to not take the kids to Walmart with me, because when I'm in the store, okay, first I'm shopping, I'm thinking about what I need, I'm doing this. And then if I have the kids with me, then I'm worrying about what the kids are doing. Are they staying by me? And so his solution, I mean, it was a one-off. I'm pretty sure that when I go to Walmart, I'm probably going to be fine. But his brain is going, it happened once, so therefore I don't want her in the situation with the kids where something could happen. And so, have some responsibility for yourself. Our solution to that is that I don't generally take the kids to the store with me, or we all go together, or I take one, so that I'm not as distracted, so that I can kind of pay attention to what's going on around me. But people,
Well, the problem is that a lot of the people that say, oh, we can do what we want, we should be able to do what we want, don't seem to factor in the person that is going to do the bad thing, whether it be rape someone or abduct a child or stab you in Walmart. They are not going to not do that act by you saying, don't do that. Do you know what I mean? If they are going to do it, they're going to do it. There's something wrong with them, they're going to do it. And so it doesn't matter how much you have rights and how much you should be able to do this, that, and the other. If they are intent on hurting you, they will try. And one of the things you're talking about your children in Walmart, one of the things that immediately made me think of, which was a horrific case in this country, of James Bulger. I don't know whether you know about, yeah. I mean, the lady was in a shopping, what you would call a mall, we call it a precinct. She was in a shopping mall. She was in a butcher's, so she was buying some meat. The child was with her. She literally turned to pay. He'd wandered off outside, and then those kids got him and did what they did to him. And it isn't unusual. Well, it is unusual, but it isn't, how to explain it? In terms of children being abducted and harmed, that tends to be a standard thing, is that they wander off when they were with the parents, you know. And you must, especially if you've got more than one kid, you've got to have eyes in the back of your head. You've got to be looking at everything, and you're not necessarily going to be on guard in a shopping mall or in a supermarket, are you? You know, when you're choosing cereal off the shelf, you're not thinking, oh, there could be a pervert in here or the murderer. You're not thinking that. So yeah, I get that. Yeah, and I understand your husband as well. I understand his, because if he was there, see, if you went as a family unit, I bet he would be thinking all these things, and he'd probably be watching all the other men in the store, you know. Because one thing that I've tried to explain to my female friends over the years is that when we used to go drinking in pubs, I mean, I know this isn't necessarily a culture that is big in America, but here it's a big thing. You know, you go to the pub and you have a drink and you get drunk and you stagger home and whatever. But as a man, you walk into a pub and you assess the situation, you know, in an instant. I'm not saying you sit there with a pen and pad, but you work out what the danger is likely to be. And I can walk into a pub and generally know if there's going to be trouble. You can see what the other men are like. And then you have women that don't have this, because they're not always the person that's going to get into a fight. So they don't have to change their behavior around these men, whereas men have to check themselves all the time. So when you're with other men, there is always a potential for a fight. Always. It's always there. But, you know, both parties generally are dealing with that themselves. Do you know what I mean? It's like we're not, you know, I'm not saying we're just ready for it at any second, but you just don't know when that other man is going to get violent or could get violent. So talk to your husband about this, because I'll be interested to know whether he thinks the same kind of thing.
Oh no,
whereas women,
I know he does.
Ah, good. So I'm not going crazy then.
But that's why I don't necessarily agree with him all the time, but I respect him. And so when he says something to me like, hey, I don't think you should take the kids to the store with you today, I listen to him. I like to take my kids to the store. It's fun. It's something different, especially with COVID. We really lost a lot of things we used to do together. But he says, I don't feel comfortable with you going with both kids. If you want to take one and leave the other one with your mom, or, you know.
I completely get that. I do completely understand that. Yeah.
And he's constantly reminding me of, like, you know, watch where you're parking, watch where you're, you know, it's just, it seems dumb, but you have to be responsible for yourself.
It's not even on the same scale, but if I'm with a female friend, whatever, walking anywhere, and say she's got a bag, you know, a bag over her shoulder, I'm conscious, I'm watching, because sometimes, you know, I'm not saying my friends are just a bit carefree and don't care, but, you know, sometimes I notice that the bag isn't zipped, it isn't closed, or I can see the purse in a bag. And I think, you're not being careful enough here. So then I've got one eye on that, because I know how easy it would be to just run by and grab it and run off. Do you know what I mean? And for some reason, some of my friends just never think about these things. So maybe it's just a male trait, because maybe we've got that thought pattern there, you know, that we could do that. We could steal that or do, you know, I don't know. But.
Well, and I also think no matter how much they try to tell us men and women aren't different, I think that there is something in men that they are programmed to protect their females. It's just normal. They are the protector. It is their job, and that's what they are going to do.
And even if it's not your female, you know, do you know what I mean?
But your friend or your whoever,
or somebody. I think it goes beyond that as well. I think it goes beyond. I think it is how do I explain this without it sounding horrible? But I do think men judge whether somebody is weaker or stronger than them. So, you know, so if me and your husband met, although it might not be a conscious process, we will both have assessed each other somewhere in our back of our mind and worked out who is stronger, who is weaker. So I would suggest, like, I'd probably turn, because I have a walking stick. People don't know this about me, but I've got a really bad knee. Now, if I came walking into your house with a walking stick, I would put money on it that your husband would somewhere register that I have that disability. And if something happened, he would help me. Do you know what I mean? And I would probably have done the same for somebody else. I think there's something. So you're right in that thing about males wanting to protect, and I don't think it's just about women. I think it's protecting someone that they consider to be weaker for want of a better word, you know, somebody who isn't as strong as they are. And I think that's what, if you go back to ancient cultures, although you may have had the tyrant that was the leader, you know, that was horrible to people, I bet you any money that that's usually the strongest person in that tribe that becomes the leader. And the reason is because they do protect the people. You know, sorry, we're really going off subject here, aren't we? What we're talking about now?
No, it's just
cut that bit out if you want.
But I think that a lot of it goes back to personal responsibility. Whether you want to have an abortion, or whether you want to walk around at 3 a.m., or whether you want to, people are not used to having to deal with the consequences of their actions, and that's a bad thing. And it's something that probably should change.
Yeah, and with I suppose did it start with the you know, the sexual liberation of the 60s, possibly, but now it's nobody wants to take responsibility for, you know, getting down, doing the business. And it's not even just about pregnancies, is it? It's about transmitted diseases. You know, it's so many things. Like what's it called? The HPV virus, the human papilloma virus, which is like a wart virus, isn't it? That, I believe, can become cancerous for women. And I think the stats for the UK, no idea what it is in America, but I think it's something like it's either 2/3 of the population of adults have this virus and don't even know they have it. Now, if you were using condoms, for example, that wouldn't necessarily it can still be transmitted, don't get me wrong, but that would reduce the chance of it being transmitted. So even that is good, you know. And surely these women that are saying, oh, you know, I'm going to name my abortion after you, my next one, even they must think, you know, I don't want to get cervical cancer, you know. Right. So why don't they think about that rather than pregnancy, you know, so that they're killing two birds with one stone? Killing is probably not the right metaphor there, is it? But you know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that a lot of it comes down to, oh, that's not going to happen to me. Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah. I'm different. I'm special. We're all special little unicorns nowadays, and so it's not going to happen to you.
Well, yeah, and I'm, you know, a demi whatever, pan-gendered something, so I probably can't get pregnant. I can't even think of the word. I don't even know the words. I'm trying to think of what they all are. But
it's just word salad at this point. It doesn't matter. But you know, we could probably talk all day long about this, but we've gone like wicked long today. So yeah,
a lot of editing in future for you. That's the.
But I have to go work, so I can't just hang out with you as much as I'd like to.
We should do this more often. It's fun. Well, then again, you haven't got time to squeeze it in, have you, in your life? Wow.
Well, no. After this week, that's what I say every week, though. After this week, it should be better.
Never is it? Never.
No, but that's okay. It's good. It keeps me on my toes. But guys, so don't forget to check out Neil. He's on Instagram, Blocked Magazine. There's a YouTube channel. There's the magazine. We've got a Patreon, right?
Yeah. If you can't find any of them individually, if you go to Linktree, Blocked Magazine, everything is in there. That's probably the easiest way to find me, on Linktree, because each magazine's there. Even the first interview I did with you guys is on there. I've not put any of the other ones on, but the very first one is on there still.
Yeah. So I'll put a link to that in the description. Don't forget to check out the wonderful and fabulous Lynn from Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. Use the code PIK July 20 to get 20% off your order this month. And Neil, thanks for stepping in for Anne. I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome.
It was a lot of fun.
Sorry for waffling so much. You know better than to just set me off talking, because I'll just go on forever.
Well, it's just that's the thing that happens with you. It just there's so much to say, and it's interesting. So
there's not enough time for it all, is there?
Yeah.
So is Anne back next week, or do you not know? Is it?
Well, Anne's going to be in Romania, I believe, for about 6 weeks, but today she's getting settled. And she should, in theory, be with us next week. Right. I haven't spoken to her since she's gotten in, so we'll find out. But
I don't know that she'll probably do this herself, but I did a bit of research and found out that Romania is right next door to where the fictional country of Latveria is, which is where Doctor Doom is from, the Fantastic Four. So I told Anne, and she was quite pleased about that. So I think she's got herself a little Doctor Doom figure, and so I think expect some photographs of Doctor Doom all over Romania.
It could be, although I thought I heard Doctor Doom was packed, so it may not happen. But
I think she unpacked him.
Oh,
so obviously it meant something. She was.
I missed that part of the conversation. So yeah, hopefully Anne will be back, and if not, I've got lots of friends that have said they'll help me out, and you might see Neil again depending on what goes on. But
yeah, sorry everyone, you can't get rid of me that easy. I keep turning up.
Yeah, but we expect Anne back soon, and thanks for joining us today. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, because that helps other people find us. I've gotten some messages lately that people are excited. They've just found the podcast. So, share, let people know that there are conservative knitters out there. And, even if you don't agree with us, we're not going to be mean to you. So
exactly.
It's a fun place to be.
Isn't it? Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you. See ya.
Bye.